This is I and Case from Doodswens, and you're watching Richard Metal Fan.
Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 396 of Richard Metal Fan Interviews, calling from Zoom, and I'm here with Inge from the almighty Doodswens. So, how are you doing today?
Okay, could be better, could be worse, but a lot.
But
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
cat.
Oh, oh, and we have the appearance of the cat in the video. Yeah, yeah. Well, never run away. That's the first I've seen a cat in a video.
Yeah, she just jumped on my lap when you asked me how I'm doing. So, but I don't think she wants to join.
Hey, hey, that's fine. But anyway, it's great to be able to have you here. So, kind of what I want to talk about is, of course, like your musical history, as well as I want to talk about the new Doodswens album. But I want to go back to the very beginning for you. So, kind of growing up in the Netherlands, what were like the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to start playing drums and be a vocalist and all that good hoo-ha?
Yeah, fair. I mean, it's to be honest, it's not really happened for me in the Netherlands, and also not like Dutch bands, and also not in Holland where I got like introduced to it. Because it was actually with my dad. He was like a big Harley Davidson fanatic, and he took me like on his bike even before I could walk. And we went to a lot of these like Harley Davidson conventions and rides and stuff. And throughout Europe, also in the Netherlands, but a lot of them in the States, in the US actually.
Wow.
And that's also how I got introduced, to heavier music and also that whole scene because the biker scene is also big men with long hair and patch jackets, drinking beer and eating hot dogs and shit. And that's just how I memorize it and the
Yeah,
stereotype.
that I think you nailed it perfectly.
um, but a lot of these events and I guess these type of people also go hand in hand with like heavier music. So that's how I got introduced to it. And I remember it was like Judas Priest, Slayer, Motorhead, that kind of stuff. But mostly like cover bands. On these events, they would have some cover bands playing all that, yeah, motor related heavy metal and hard rock and stuff. And that's really how I got introduced to it. But I was so young that also I didn't know any better. So when I would get back to school and all my classmates were listening to, I don't know, what's like the English equivalent of some young kids, teenage pop.
Like delinquents, juveniles. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Holland, it's called K3, K3. It was like three girls with all different color hair, and they sing like songs about kisses and holiday and whatever. I don't know. So all my peers would listen to that kind of stuff, right? And I came home and I just discovered Slayer. So that was quite interesting growing up. But I was also, and I was really into that music, but also I didn't know any better, and I was just really into that whole vibe of like motors and Harleys, and also the type of guys, and also the women. Like it was rare, like in the metal scene. Still nowadays, there is more men than women, but especially when I was younger, it was like 98% men on the Harley, and then a few like chicks. And I was so inspired. Like I thought it was so cool, and that was the only thing I could really relate to in a way. So that was really cool. But yeah, I was just into the music in general, I guess, also because of the motors and the type of people that was there. It was always so fun, and these people like scary looking guys, but they were so nice and friendly, and even now what I experience in the metal scene.
Yeah.
Um, and I was also like really obsessed with the drums always. I was just standing there like watching the drummer, and especially if they would do double bass, I was so obsessed and still am so obsessed with it. So then, later in Holland, like my life was still mostly in Holland. So then I went to drum school. Like I finally got drum classes and stuff. And that guy was like, "Oh, hello, little girl. You want to play K3 with me?" And I was like, "No, I want to play Slayer, and I want to learn to do the motor sound with my feet." So he was like, "Okay, hell yes, but we need to start with the basics." And from there, it just evolved and started, I guess.
All right. And then flashing forward to many years, going into 2017, I know you had also started up Doodswens, but you also had Riot Pill. So how did like the idea to form like those bands come to be?
To be honest, it was like Riot Pill really started because some girls in my area had like this Riot Girl punk band and they needed a drummer. And yeah, I just wanted to play drums and go on stage and make music, and especially like some angry females screaming about like sex and shit. I was like, hell yeah. So I joined them, and also because I was planning to go to a music school in the Dutch city called Eindhoven. And to audition for that, they really encouraged you come there with your own music or your own band instead of just playing covers or showing your skills. So for me, it was really like, okay, I need this band to get into that school and then also get some experience. And these girls turned out to be really nice, so we became friends. And um, yeah, like it was more than just than the audition for the school in the end. But my main motivation in the beginning was definitely that. And then I got accepted into the school as actually the first female metal drummer to have ever studied and graduated there to this day. Um,
Wow.
I met Vrouwtje on the first day already. She was wearing like a dark shirt. I was wearing a battery hoodie, and we looked at each other like, let's make music. And then we had a class where you just could fill in the time however you want. So, like, go in a rehearsal room, work on your project, do your homework, whatever. We went into the rehearsal room and we started jamming. And that's basically like the rest is history, you know?
Yeah. And of course, like next year does also mark 10 years of Doodswens as a band. Like, I gotta think about it. Almost a decade into this band. Like, did you think that Doodswens would be around for almost 10 years?
Oh, I knew that what I was doing with that girl was so true to just what I wanted to do, you know, like even without the intention of having a band. So I definitely always felt like I will do this. I just didn't know or expect it would be still under the same band, you know, and the band having evolved to the way it has now. That I never expected any of that. But definitely, I've always had the strong feeling that what I'm doing now, I will keep doing that, you know, until I die. Just
Yeah.
whatever format or name it's under, that's the big question.
Yeah. Yeah. But what would be like a bucket list goal for Doodswens? Like, what would be for you personally be like that one thing be like, man, wouldn't it be awesome if we did that?
Well, we ticked some of them already. Like play a show in Iceland on a very artsy festival. So definitely that's on my bucket list endlessly to end up in these like little bit out of the ordinary festivals that are very like focused on creative artistic people that do it yeah, I don't know, like something more than just a music festival, but just like big art collaborations. You know, I'm really into that. And then especially if it's in some country like Iceland or something you can tick off your bucket list. So I'd hope to do that, like maybe in Japan or something, and then end up in some weird place with some weird artistic craziness, you know, that would be really cool. And another big one for me was to tour and to go in the massive music tour bus with Gorgoroth and Marduk. And we did that, ticked that one off. But there are still so many more bands that we would like to tour with. And then the next big bucket list is to do that under our own name, like headline one of those tours, you know. That would definitely be a huge bucket list. And then there's some festivals we haven't done yet, like Inferno, Beyond the Gate, you know, the Scandinavian Norwegian festivals. They're still a big bucket list too. And then playing the States and South America. Those are still unfulfilled, unchecked bucket lists.
Nice. And then talking about like Doodswens, because I like you started like playing around like the Netherlands and stuff, and then of course you got signed to Svart Records. So how did they find Doodswens?
I think it was just in a process of where we were really thinking and reaching out, like thinking about what kind of label we wanted to do that album with. And we were just kind of like in, how do you say, like putting it under each other and then reaching out to them and seeing if they were even interested and what the deal would be like. And I think Swart was just one of those on the list for us. Through mutual people, friends, and other bands, we heard some good stuff about them. And we reached out, and I think that was the only one from the small list that we had that it was a mutual, very, very good feeling and fit for us.
Cool. And then going into end of 2021, you dropped the debut full-length Doodswens album, Lick Trees, which I think is just a very great way to kick off your career with a bang. So, what was sort of like the whole writing and recording process like for Lick Trees?
Wait, sorry, my phone was like exploding, so I'm telling people that I'll call them back later. What was the? Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So, what was sort of like the whole writing and recording process like for Lick Trees?
For Lichtvrees specifically, I mean, the writing process is just very organic, you know, like everything is still like the same as that first day we entered that rehearsal room without a plan, but just feeling your gut, trusting your gut and following your intuition feeling. And that's how we also approached and reached eventually that album. We just kept writing songs, or if we got inspired by, I don't know, some documentary, a cool record, a specific sound or feeling, and then we go into the rehearsal room and we keep like working and evolving on it until it becomes a full song. And then in the studio, actually, a lot of this is very similar to now our most recent record. It's different people, but it's still the same process. And then in the studio, so for both the records, we just find a nice studio with an engineer that feels like a good energetic match. And we go into a room together. I count it in, and we tell the guy to press record. I count in, and we play, and that's how we record it. You know.
Yeah. And of course, when the album first came out, did you start touring outside of like the Netherlands for the first time, or was it still just locally around like Amsterdam, Eindhoven, and stuff like that?
For what the first time? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, it's sort of like touring outside of the Netherlands for the first time when Lick Trees first came out.
Like yeah, that was the first tour we did outside of the Netherlands after that album came out.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. And what was like your reaction to like being in front of these new countries for the first time? It was like, this is different from the Netherlands.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's so different, especially because the Netherlands is a very well, quite high standard in terms of venues and hospitality and technical aspects of the venues too. But I wasn't unfamiliar with that, you know, because before going to all these places with my band, I went to all these places as a visitor, fan, mercher, just metal and black metal enthusiast. So some of it wasn't like completely new to me. Just experiencing it from the band side was. And I would say that mostly the big difference, you start to feel that in Poland and in Czechia. You know, people are a bit more rough over there. Such a different political and cultural background than from here. And you can tell, you know, the people are more crazy, more passionate. Black metal is still in a way like extreme in ways that it is not over here in our comfortable, quite steady environment that is Holland. You know, over there people are still a bit more extreme because they live a bit more rough. So yeah, I would say that these Eastern European vibe countries and gigs are something different completely. But I really love that so much. Yeah, like I said, because it's so much more close to that extreme feeling that you want or that I am attracted to in black metal. And then going to countries like Croatia, but also Italy, that's so different too. And then also the people, of course, and their behavior, demeanor, energy, which is really nice. Like every country we've been to, all these people, and they've been so interesting and nice to talk to, and especially if they're fans or supporters, it's so genuine and real. I would say that's the word I would use for like the experience of playing in these countries for the first time. Everything just feels so real. But then Italy is also completely different. Like over there, there is not a lot of money in culture, so they don't have very good venues. They don't have very good hospitality or technical aspects of a venue. So that's different too. It's yeah, Holland and all those other countries. It's a huge difference, and I think that the trick is to be aware of that, to be aware of the country you're in, their history, their culture, and just appreciate what you get. You know, just knowing that all these people are trying the best, but not every country can be as well going and subsidized as Holland. You know.
Yeah. And now here we are with, of course, we got the new Doodswens album, the self-titled album, which came out like a week ago. So how has like the whole like record cycle been for you guys?
The record cycle? What do you mean, sorry?
Like the whole like reception and everything, because I've listened to the album and it's just a badass album.
Thank you so much. I mean, well, that's basically the responses we get so far. Like people are saying like it's a very um heavy, or yeah, it seems to make an impact, you know? Like people are appreciating the heaviness and the darkness in that album. So that's really nice to hear.
Yeah. And musically, did you want to continue in the same vein as Lick Trees, or with this new self-titled album, you wanted to try something different?
Well, so we never really want, or we never try to do anything. You know, everything just is. We just do ourselves and those ends. We don't really think or try too much about these things. Everything just evolves and comes to life organically. Because I really believe that if something is meant to be and you put your mind and your energy to it, it will work out. And if it doesn't, then for some reason it wasn't meant to be. So we never consciously like tried to do the same or something different. We just did what felt good and what led us in our path what led us to the writing and recording of that album. And now in hindsight, if I look back, it's yeah, you know, it's different because it's me on vocals. First of all, there is a new lineup, there is a bassist, but the whole process towards it, to me, it felt the same. Creative process, recording process, intention of the band and the songs, to me, is still very much in line with still that first day when me and Vrouwtje went into that rehearsal room.
Nice. And being as this is like the self-titled album, because usually when a band does like a self-titled album, it's always like the first album, but seeing as this is second, and I always feel like it's like a change, or I feel like it's where I feel like you found yourself. So what was sort
Yeah,
of like the reason for it being self-titled? Because did you really just want to say like, hey, this is Doodswens, this is who we are?
yeah, definitely that. Like it really felt like everything fell into place, you know, once again. But after everything the band has been through and then evolved through, this is where we ended up now as what Doodswens is. And with me on drums and vocals, that really feels like the final statement of the future of this band.
Yeah. And of course, you just mentioned this is the first album with you taking up the role of the lead vocals. So how nervous were you to sort of like step up front and sort of like sing as well?
Not nervous. I was so excited. You know, excitement took over that nervousness so much. Because it was something I've always wanted to do. On that first rehearsal, that first day that me and the other girl went into that rehearsal room, I had a mic too. I was doing drums and singing. But, you know, back in 2017, as you just pointed out, is almost 10 years ago, it was very difficult for me. And I just very quickly, maybe after one and a half like song, I realized like I need to put that microphone down and focus on what one thing, which right now is going to be drums. And then I did that, you know, for the remainder of the years. But it's always been in the back of my mind, you know, it is my big dream to do vocals while playing drums, especially do extreme vocals while playing extreme drums or scream over a blast beat, basically. Um, and then when the moment came that I just really finally cut that rope and made that decision, and I was like, "Fuck yes, I'm gonna do it." I was just so excited, especially when I felt it working out. But it was very short term because we had a tour planned. We got a tour proposal for 35 days, main support from Marduk and Origin. And I just said, when I got that proposal, I was like, hell yes. And they were like, oh, you got a lineup, where do you go? I'm like, don't worry about it. I don't, but don't worry about it. I'm going on that tour. Just, and then I found the other two guys, and then I was like, this is either the beginning or the end of Doodswens. It will be the beginning of something new or the end of the band as it is. And if that's the case, then I'm gonna do vocals and I'm gonna do everything in my power to make that happen. So I just locked myself in a rehearsal room for 2 months and practiced until it worked. And then when I started feeling that it was actually doable, I got so excited. But then the nervous, still, I mean, nervous is not the word I would use, but the big question that we still had to find out was if I was gonna manage to do it 35 days in a row on a tour as an untrained vocalist on a stage while playing drums. So that was how do you say it, like yeah, exciting also in a way to figure it out, because if it didn't work out, then what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
So the only thing where I felt a bit yeah, like nervousness, or still like just like I hope it works out, let's see. But then it did, and we finished that tour and it worked out, and I was like, fuck yes. I went all in on black, and the ball landed on black, and then the future of Doodswens, like the new chapter, started.
Yeah. And of course you got like the two new members, Ricardo and Peter. So how did they end up joining Doodswens? And did they maybe bring in something new to the band that you didn't have previously?
So they are R and P, and I am I, right, in the terms of Doodswens in our lineup. So together
Yeah.
we're rest in peace to the old Doodswens, and now we are the new death, the new bringers of death. But I approached them just for that tour, and I asked them like, I need guys for a tour. Do you guys want to do this tour with me? So kind of as a session job. But I was also trying out with vocals and also already writing some demos because I had some songs and ideas in my head. And then immediately, like even before we had our first rehearsal, I noticed and felt that we had such a connection, also creatively. So even before we had our first like physical rehearsal in a rehearsal room, we finished a song with me on vocals, a demo, Vlaamse Vloek, actually, the end song of the new album. So yeah, and then we went into that first time that we had the first rehearsal, and it was like a match. We clicked personally, musically, but also creatively. And they brought me a lot. They brought me and the band a lot because they brought me a steady lineup, good friends, a lot of creative input, and also for me personally, they're really good friends, and they helped me go through some personal or previous band issues too. And I would say that, it's without them, nothing of this would have been right now.
All right. And talking about like your approach to drums, because being as also a drummer, do you need to like hear the music in order to lay down your parts, or do you usually have like an entire like drum pattern written and the rest of the band can write according to that?
It's either one of those. Like sometimes it starts with a melody, or I wake up with a melody and I voice record it on my phone. Then I send it to P and he writes guitar parts. Sometimes R, the bassist, sometimes he just comes up with a riff or some kind of groove. Sometimes I have a vocal line or just a sound that I want to make. And sometimes it's like I have a whole song in my head and I just lay down the drums, I record that, and I send it to them. So it never starts from one specific thing. It's either one of those things, and then from there we build until it becomes a whole.
Yeah. And I know you also play like in a variety of different bands. Like, of course, Doodswens is more black metal. And then we briefly touched upon Riot Pill, which is more kind of like just punk rock. And then you also played with Gestalt and, of course, the Fifth Alliance. And so when it comes to playing like with all these different styles of bands, do you have to like be in a certain mind frame with playing a different bands, or do you have like the sort of like a same like mindset with any of the projects that you've been involved with?
Fair enough. I mean, all of these bands were mostly just second jobs for me. Well, apart from Riot Bill, that's just my teenage band where everything started, basically. Which, by the way, used to be called Lilith. And then we renamed it to Riot Pill, and it's now inactive. But these other bands were more like session job, just for me to get some experience and play some gigs with these guys. Um, and so that was mainly focused on drums. I was just really focused on the technical aspect of those drum parts and learning that and getting that down. So it's completely different because Doodswens is a mindset. Doodswens is an energy and very intense mindset that I have to be in to perform that. Those other bands you mentioned are mainly black metal orientated too, a lot of blast beats, and that was just what I was focused on, like getting that technical thing down. But there is actually another band right now that I'm also in, where I'm just the vocalist, which is new, and I'm very excited about that. And it's a US band from my friends. I have some friends in New York, in Brooklyn, and they have a band called Exquisite Corpse, which is more death metal, and they needed a vocalist, and I was like, yeah, I can send some demos, I'm down. In those fans, I mostly go high, but I really like deep, deep down. I don't know, just deep
Like guttural
depth.
growls?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I love that too. And I laid down some demos for them, and they were like, "Fuck yes!" And we recorded a whole EP that is yet to be released. And I'm really excited for that because it's just another range and aspect of vocals that I'm now discovering and yeah, getting into too. Um, but that actually does feel like a complete different energy, like to be able, just because vocals is also such a physical instrument, and it really comes from a different part in my throat and lungs to make that sound, and for that I need a different energy than I do for those ones, for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And in terms of like singing and playing drums at the same time, like how hard is it to like do both? Do you maybe have like with your drum kit, you have to like maybe like have it like set up accordingly to so you sing and play drums? Like what's sort of like the whole process to like doing both at the same time?
um well, I have my microphone in a specific direction and angle, which was also the big step of why I didn't take it earlier, because it was like before doing it, it just felt really difficult and impossible. Like, how are you going to do that? What are you going to do with the mic? Or do you need like a Britney Spears mic? But that's really stupid. So I don't want that. Until the day where I was like, fuck thinking in all these problems. Let's think in solutions and just fucking do it. So I started practicing at home without a microphone, just screaming over blast beats and then getting timing down and then making those sounds into words. And I noticed that I would move my head like this whenever I did a scream. So I was like, oh, that's perfect. I'll just put the mic like this, angled down a little bit. And then it worked out like very easily. Just, all these problems that I and other people were thinking about just ceased to exist once I started doing it. And then in terms of practicing, it's like, how you practice drums when you first start, limb by limb, creating muscle memory, and then eventually combining it all until you can effortlessly do it on your muscle memory.
Yeah.
But practice and dedication.
Yeah. And of course like with you singing and also playing drums, start talking about that. Do you find like you're able to express like different sides of you creatively?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. It was, for me, it felt like the missing link. I can now express with words what I cannot put into the drums, and the vocals are just really pushing my drums also. because that was also something that previous people I was dealing with told me. They were like, "Oh, if you're gonna do the vocals, you'll lose all the power in your drums, and that's exactly cool about your drums, so you can't do that." But then when I started doing it, I was like, "Fuck those negative thoughts," because if I scream, I'm actually blasting way harder, and um, if I blast, my vocals become like really intense too. So it's just like pushing each other in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, and talking about sort of like the live show, like is there like a similar energy to also like playing live versus like recording, or are they kind of like almost like completely separate?
Well, we try to do that, like recording for the album. We really, really try to do it exactly as we do it live. Also, have our ritual and the smell of sage, and just have our organic way of making music together, but just have some microphones and an engineer press record. But that's in an ideal world, mostly in my head, because the reality is a bit different. Like playing live is just different. Also, the technical side of it, how the stage is set up and the microphones, and you're performing for an audience. That's different energy than if you're recording to eternalize a physical product. So we did end up doing it together in one room, but we didn't end up using the vocals that we recorded, because, like I said, it's like an immortalized product. You're making an actual recording that will be immortalized. So, with that thought in our heads, we decided that for the end result that the album is, we layered some separately recorded vocals on top of that. But I was still, having drumsticks and waving my arms around for the intensity of it.
Yeah. And then the final question I want to ask is coming from the Netherlands, there's so many great Dutch metal bands, but I feel like the scene in the Netherlands is different. Like you sound like nothing like Asphyx, and Asphyx sound nothing like, of course, Textures, and they sound nothing like, of course, Epica. So how has like the whole like Dutch metal scene have evolved over the years? Did you feel like comfortable for it, or was it the goal for Doodswens to get outside of the Netherlands and play in front of like different countries and audiences and stuff?
Well, here I kind of come back to that we never had a goal like that in mind. Our goal was just to make music and express ourselves, sticking true to our own feelings and intentions with it. So we never tried to be with, or especially outside of a certain group. We just have always and are still doing our own separate thing. I don't feel that we're like connected or inside some like circle or scene of specific bands or sounds. So I don't know about us in comparison with that. But the Dutch black metal scene is definitely an interesting one. And there is, like, even in our tiny, tiny country, different sounds and different mindsets in different regions. The middle of the Netherlands has a completely different black metal sound and mindset than the south, which is completely different than all the way up north. So that's really cool and interesting. And then, yeah, Textures and Epica is also cool that you mentioned them, because the Stef Brooks, the drummer of Textures, he was my drum teacher in that music school I went to.
Oh,
And then
really?
Epica, their
Love
bass,
them.
Rob van der Loo, he was our music theory teacher in that school I went to.
No
And
way.
he is now
Wow.
also the managers of Doodswens.
Really? Damn, I had no idea.
Small country, and I mean the metal
It's
world
like
is
I feel like everybody knows each other.
kind of like, not everybody in a country knows each other, but if you go into a small niche like heavy metal, extreme metal, and then more, you go into the corners and subgenres of that, it doesn't take long before you know everybody. You know, way we're like, yeah, involved in ways. Like Steph has been a great personal and drum inspiration and influence on me in my life through that school. And then Rob as a person, but also as a musician, too in the same way and continuously to this day because he is now managing us, or not managing us, but in the team of managers that we work with.
Nice. And so also like in the end to sort of wrap things up, what's next for Doodswens? Of course, that the self-titled album's out, been out now for a week now. It's just anything else with the band you'd like to also plug in terms of like tours and stuff. And is there a chance you can please bring Doodswens to the States for a tour? We'd love to have you.
Hope that. I mean, so unfortunately, we don't have anything like a tour confirmed that I can plug yet, which is really unfortunate. But we are working on that behind the scenes. We have some festival shows planned, like we'll play Under the Black Sun, and we're just working on playing more shows, more tours. And the States is really high up on that bucket list, you know. And man, I don't know if I how much I can say about this, but we are talking with and about somebody and a festival in the States in 2028. So hopefully I'll be able to say or confirm more about that soon.
All right. But thank you for joining me today for this conversation. It's great to be able to have Doodswens on the show. It's just any final words you want to say to the viewers that are watching this to close us out.
Stay true to yourself. Hail Satan.
That's great. So, everybody, I from Dudswins, and we'll see you next time.